But now with testicular heat, which has been clinically proven to have a massive impact on not only sperm health, but testosterone as well, which is why the testes need to remain outside of the body.
Hello and welcome, Budri Gamawara from the Gadigal lands in Sydney. It's time for Startup 360, the show that's all about founder fun, more than founder mode, although a bit of founder everything. I'm Simon Thompson, editor of startupdaily.net, and I'm joined by my fabulous co-host,
Rebecca Campbell, CEO of Fish Banners.
Great to have you. Did you have a wonderful time at the Startup Daily Best in Tech Awards?
I did. It was honestly, I keep saying it to everyone, but I think that was the best awards night I've been to. And I'm not just saying that because I love you guys. I genuinely feel like that was just outstanding. It was fantastic vibe. All the winners, all the finalists, everyone was fantastic. Yep. After party was great. It was really good all round, ticking all the boxes.
And how about our keynote speaker, Dr. Ian Opperman? There I am thinking I know a fair bit about the bloke, and then he reveals he kind of helped invent 3G and 4G, and he talked about sort of what it means to be a founder and that innovation mindset. I thought that was a fantastic address from him.
I was so wrapped, I forgot that I had to go up and actually do my thing next. So
There was a lot going on.
It was great though, honestly. So good. The AWS address was also fantastic.
Yeah, Will.
Yep. Amazing.
Yeah, he was making plenty of AI jokes, wasn't he?
He was.
Thank you to AWS Startups, to Vanta, to all of our incredible sponsors. The after party was great fun. Thanks to Tankstream Labs. And we got Celebrity Gate Crashed. Craig Foster was there.
Wow.
In the corner. Everyone had a wonderful time. So thank you to everyone who came along. And hopefully you've all seen the incredible award winners. We're going to get a finalist in today in Saara Jamieson from Cool Beans Underwear up in Queensland. We're going to speak to her shortly. And over the next few weeks, we will be getting many of the winners and finalists in to talk on the show. So that's pretty exciting. Before we go any further, I do want to say that Startup 360 is supported by Vanta, helping startups unlock market opportunities through automated compliance. And wasn't Andrew from Vanta happy up on stage with our Startup of the Year, Relevance AI? And Daniel brought the entire team up, which was great, and they had a great night. We've got a story up on startupdaily.net all about our Startup of the Year winner and, of course, our Scale Up of the Year winner. So many great people, so many women, I am pleased to say, and there was that moment in the conversation where someone said they were surprised by how many women were in the room, and I said it's not by accident, it's by design.
Of course.
And it was good to celebrate so many clever people. But we have lots to talk about. And speaking of news, ta-da! We have news. We can talk about it. Tell me, Magella, where are you living in Sydney nowadays?
It is... glad to officially share. The Fish Banners has relocated to the Tech Central Innovation Hub, which is now the home of our residency program. It's one of our 2 spaces. The other one is located in the CBD. But along with this new home for our residency is also our partnership with Stone and Chalk. And it honestly just it's so great to be there. The new building or the new operating model is a new and improved version of the Sydney Startup Hub. I think we took a lot of the learnings about what worked and what didn't, and are now really trying to build more room for collaboration, more room for connection, and joint resources to make, to double down on what's important, which is, of course, the founders and the teams.
Because people in the space are very good at collaborating, and I think Stone and Chalk is also incredibly relieved, and Chris Kirk, who was there the other night, it's been a long process since the government first announced the move, but I'm delighted to hear that the government has selected Stone and Chalk to run the Tech Central Innovation Hub, as it's now known, which is the old scale-up hub, but they've brought the landing pads in there, the regional one, the international one, then you guys are in there. It kind of feels like now we've finally got this sorted, everyone can get cracking.
It is really good. And as you say, it has been a long time coming. I think it'll be worth the wait. As I say, I think I put it in my post actually, these transitions don't happen overnight. And it is thanks to the hard work of the teams involved. I think the Stone and Chalk team have been super busy this year, and all their hard work I think is going to pay off. So, and we're really glad Fish Banners to be able to contribute that as well.
Now, it kind of feels a little bit like hatches, matches and dispatches in this respect, but the closure of 1835i, ANZ's venture arm, was sad news this week.
It did, yeah. I was sad to see that.
I wasn't surprised because if you remember about 3 weeks ago, suddenly they had about $42 million worth of Airwallex shares. I think the total figure was close to $70 million Australian. They had about 1% of the company. They sold all of that, which the timing of that was very unusual. And just as that news emerged, it was also announced that they were shutting down cash awards, which which 1835i had invested around about 100 million in. A couple of years ago, it was a public company. They'd been an initial investor. They spent another 70 mil or so to take it private. Then they'd merged it with Little Birdie. They'd acquired that business after it failed. And then last year they put it into the ANZ app. And so it seemed like everything was going really well, but the bank announced a couple of weeks ago, and of course you've got to remember the CEO is currently on an efficiency drive. He's currently going through a business that only a couple of weeks ago announced it was being fined $240 million in a deal it cut with ASIC over a few things that serious breaches. I think there was 4 all up, and so they agreed with ASIC that they'll apply to the federal court to pay $240 million, which is a massive, massive fine for what's going on there. So it kind of felt like the writing was on the wall, but it's terrible news for Justin and the team at 1835i because there are some great companies in that portfolio. Apparently ANZ has built a holding company they're going to pop them in, but that's not what Venture does. Venture does a lot of the hand-holding, talks you down off the cliff when it all feels overwhelming. They're there as a partner. As anyone knows, when they try to ring their bank, it's hard enough to talk to anyone about your problems, let alone being a startup founder who needs a little bit of help. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the portcos. I suspect they'll slowly be offloaded in secondary market sales. I don't know, but it's just sad that one of our big 4 banks doesn't have a venture arm. Of course, there's Reinventure, X15 at CBA, which only last week or so ago did a deal with Dom Pim and Triple Bubble to help founders. And then, of course, you've got NAB Ventures as well, but nothing like that at ANZ. But CEO is getting rid of about 3,500 jobs. So different time, different space, different happenings.
I think it's definitely in line with the wider pattern I feel like we're seeing with our bigger corporates, a lot less funding for innovation, and it's definitely closing down. So I think it's just another nail in the coffin in that regard. But sad to see that one go.
And it's been a busy week for raises, I have to say. A lot going on. The one that caught my eye late this week, of course, is up in Queensland. Again, we've got a bit of a Queensland theme going on here. Andrew and Josie Bate from Swarm Farm Robotics have raised another $30 million, which is a pretty substantial check for an ag tech company, but great news for them. And we've seen a few others, Enhanced Labs, who's trying to, another Queensland company. It's all Queensland this week. Do you think this is an omen for the Rugby League Grand Final on the weekend?
It could be. It could have been the AFL last weekend. So, it could be either way.
Yes. So, Enhanced Labs got $2.3 million. They're focused on stopping the AI slop that is now coming in, generative AI in business. So they've done well. I know Amber got 10 million as well from overseas investors. A lot of raises. You can, of course, read about them on Smart Company and Startup Daily on Friday. We do a big roundup that we work together on and share with our readers. So you can get the entire week's worth of raises in one story.
Excellent.
But shall we take a quick break and then we'll get Saara Jamieson in to talk about blokes and their bits and taking care of them. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Startup 360. We are joined with Saara Jamieson, the founder of Cool Beans Underwear. Welcome, Saara.
Hi, it's fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me today.
And congratulations on finalist of the Best in Tech Awards. Very keen to hear all about the startup and, of course, your journey getting here.
Because it's a very high-tech piece of equipment looking after a very precious piece of masculinity.
It most definitely is, Simon. I definitely didn't think when I was younger I would be in the fertility space or in the men's underwear space, but here we are. This all began from my own infertility journey and just constantly getting responses from clinicians of, no, we don't know why you can't conceive. There shouldn't be any issues. Jordan's sperm was above average.
That must have pleased him.
Why is it that we're not, when we're doing sperm tests and you're going through infertility, why are we not looking at every aspect? So for our situation, we were never looking at the DNA fragmentation. So how strong is the DNA inside the sperm? We were just looking at how many you have, their morphology, how do they swim? Everything looked okay. So we were both deemed to be okay. But it wasn't until I started diving into the research myself as a medical researcher that I discovered how dramatically DNA fragmentation was increasing and impacting male fertility. And then not only that, how drastically male fertility was declining. So after navigating that and figuring out all this incredible data, there's so much clinical data on this and nobody was doing anything with it.
No one's put two and two together.
That's it. Put our minds together. What can we do about it? And we ended up developing a few different variants before we got to something that Jordan was actually able to wear, but essentially a underwear that would keep his testes supported and cool. And we're like, well, we'll see if anything here happens. So this was 3.5 years into our infertility journey. I'd suffered multiple miscarriages throughout the way. And essentially clinicians were like, well, the next step is IVF. And while IVF is incredible, for personal reasons, I didn't want to go through IVF. If it came to that, my personal choice was adoption. So I'm like, no, I want to try and have children naturally. Otherwise, I'd rather adopt. And so this was our last thing that we were trying before we'd start on the adoption route. But 4 months later, after Jordan started wearing those early prototypes, we conceived with our son. But with the difference being was that we actually carried to term and now have a beautiful son and a daughter as well.
Congratulations. It's an amazing story, but I don't think blokes think about this sort of issue much. And let's talk about what's going on. And I kind of know that what's happening down there is quite interesting in terms of the engineering because they do lower and then recede back into the body to regulate temperature. But there's some external environmental things that boys now have going on. Can you talk a little bit about that? We're going to get into the nuts and bolts, and I'm going to make some terrible puns through this entire conversation.
It wouldn't be a Startup 360 episode if you weren't.
Exactly. Well, as a dad, I can make actual dad jokes about how I got to be a dad. So there you go. But Sarah, there's some complexity around, let's just say, potentially cooking one half of a baby.
That's right. So fertility is so much still focused on females, even though infertility now accounts for 50% of male factor. It's so important that we actually do bring men into the conversation. But how do we do that? And the other thing is people don't realise how many of our daily actions are then affecting not only your fertility, but your testosterone and your mental health all the way through. But it's so difficult today. We've got microplastics, we've got chemicals, we've got radio waves, Wi-Fi waves, we've got everything going on that is helping to destroy our bodies essentially. And so how do you counteract all of those things? It's incredibly, incredibly difficult. But now with testicular heat, which has been clinically proven to have a massive impact on not only sperm health, but testosterone as well, which is why the testes need to remain outside of the body, why they dangle outside instead of being held up internally. So the science now shows that an average sized male only needs to sit for approximately 20 minutes in a padded office chair or 12 to 13 minutes in a car, and that's long enough to heat his testes to a point to pretty much switch off cellular function. So that's not just sperm health, that is also your testosterone. And that's why testosterone levels are decreasing so rapidly at the moment. So not only is male fertility declining, the average male has about 25% less testosterone today on average than a male of 20 years ago. And then if you look at our athletes and our veterans, they have approximately 25% less again than the general population. And theirs isn't from the insulating effect from the thighs. That is because their testes are held up next to the body and they're constantly absorbing the body's core temperature. And their bodies are running at much higher temperatures for much longer periods of time.
Wow.
So you're getting a masterclass in sort of what's happening.
There we go. I didn't know any of this. This is super interesting. As a founder, particularly, a founder like yourself who's really working on the edge of innovation here, and you're introducing something and working on a problem that a lot of people don't really, understand the full depths of. A lot of your job is actually not only just to talk about your solution, but to educate people on the problem itself. How do you go about that as a founder to make sure, you're balancing both sides of that?
Education is key. Especially when you're first to market. So we are the only product globally that is tackling this issue and tackling an issue that many don't know about. And so one way we tackle that is by entering awards and getting our name out there. It is one of the cheapest, most simplest ways. If you can get some notoriety behind your name, you're more likely to then get asked, especially last minute, to come on and record a session for a podcast, to get interviews, to get your name out there and get a platform for you to actually start talking about the problem more openly. So that's been one of my strategies, is try to enter as many awards as possible to get that notoriety behind myself. So I'm actually speaking on a panel this afternoon. I'm speaking at Queensland Health next week, and then I'll be speaking at the Australian Men's Health Forum later this month, talking about what's happening in the men's health space, how testosterone and fertility is declining. But it's not only that, it's how it's impacting the future generation as well, which is another thing that people don't consider. So little biology lesson here, I guess. When you have a child, your child is only as healthy as the egg and sperm that they're made with. There is this big conception that sperm health is only about conception and that your DNA is already, it's set in stone and there's nothing you can do about it. That's furthest thing from the truth. And so you will actually see a lot of couples who conceive naturally will have much healthier children than those going through IVF. Not because there's anything wrong with going through IVF, but because there's this mentality of IVF is this miracle worker, they're going to make my baby, or my wife already has polycystic ovaries, or she has endometriosis. The issue lies there. I don't need to do anything myself to try and help us on our journey. So these men aren't actually doing what they can with their lifestyle factors to improve their sperm health, which is why we're now seeing children being born with a much higher with physical and mental disabilities, suffering with depression, anxiety, eating disorders. All of these things can be linked back to subfertile sperm. And the fact that fertility is decreasing so rapidly, so just to give you an idea of how quickly it is decreasing, in the 1970s, the average male had 99 million sperm in 1 mil of ejaculate. Today, we're closer to 40 million. And by 2050, we're expected to reach 20 million.
Wow.
And so if you are trying to conceive into your 30s, you're pretty much not going to be able to conceive naturally. You will need some form of reproductive services to be able to create a baby.
So, Sarah, this just can't be because we're sitting at our desks for too long, and I keep wanting to jump up after what you said before about things, even though my reproductive days are over. I'd like to keep the testosterone for a bit longer. But what you're saying is that health aspect on so many different fronts is being transformed by male lifestyle.
It is, most definitely. And so smoking, drinking, making sure you're getting adequate exercise, but they definitely don't recommend doing like HIIT training sessions, those really high intensity boxing, cycling. Do not cycle. Cycling is the worst thing for testicular heat health, as well as for your testosterone, all of these things. Yeah, cycling is a big no-no.
It just hurts down there afterwards anyway.
Well, so many men I speak to, it's like, it's okay. It just gets numb after a while and I don't feel it. And I'm like, well, that is not the solution.
Yeah, you might as well just stand there and you can whack them for half an hour and be done with it.
So there are all of these things, but it is so much easier to improve male fertility than female fertility because as females, we are born with our eggs. So you can do things to improve your endometrial lining and, all these little things, but essentially your egg health is your egg health. Sperm, because it's constantly being reproduced, so it takes roughly about 72 days from a single cell to a mature usable sperm. You have every 72 days to do that new cycle to drastically improve your sperm health. So we recommend 3 to 4 months of trying to improve your lifestyle factors. And that was exactly what happened with Jordan and I. It was our 4th cycle, essentially, our 4th ovulation window after he started wearing Cool Beans that we were able to conceive, and because we gave him time to improve his sperm health.
That's incredible. Well, tell us then, what's the difference between Cool Beans underwear and regular underwear? How is it made differently?
So I think I'll start with understanding what were the issues we had to solve with traditional underwear.
Yep.
So with traditional underwear, we knew we couldn't use polyester. So polyester has been scientifically proven to damage and kill sperm cells. So all your cooling underwear, your athletic underwear is all polyester based. And think about when you pull a polyester shirt out of the dryer, you get that electrostatic shock.
Yep.
The same thing's happening around your scrotum. So polyester fibers interact with your scrotal hairs, causing that electrostatic field to occur, sending little micro-sized waves into the testes, damaging and killing sperm cells. So men, go home, check your underwear drawer, throw out anything that's polyester based. Secondly, we had to ensure we're not getting that insulating effect from the thigh. So when you're seated, the testes generally fall between your legs. They get insulated, they overheat, and that's what's shutting off that cellular function. And then thirdly, it was the fact that in many underwears that the testes are held up, constantly absorbing the body's core temperature. So they were the issues we had to solve. So we wanted to allow also that there was adequate ability to expel heat and sweat and make sure there's no chafing as well for men. Because that is, especially here in Australia, that becomes a big problem, especially in the season that we're just heading into now.
Yep.
So we've designed Cool Beans to look like normal underwear from the outlook, but all the magic happens internally. So internally, you will actually find there's a little slot where you place your beans into an external elasticized mesh pouch. So that actually allows the easy dissipation of heat and sweat. Because the scrotum is external to the bulk of the underwear, there is a fabric barrier between the scrotum and the body. So you're not going to get that absorption of core body temperature. But the most important feature is how this pouch actually comes up and attaches to the waistband. So what that does, it generally elevates and holds the scrotum forward, placing it on your lap, not between your legs when you're seated, which also makes it very, very comfortable. So no more getting squished or tangled and all those things that happen to men. Everything is nicely held in place, easy dissipation of heat and sweat. There's no skin-on-skin contact, so there's no more chafing. Fungal conditions, heat rash, all of those things are also diminished.
Well, to use an old marketing term for women, lift and separate, I suppose, is what's going on there.
Exactly, it really is. And there's one other feature about Cool Beans that makes it very different to any other product available on the market. So like women's breasts, scrotums are also different sizes. So it's really important that we are offering adequate support for your size and shape. So the scrotal pouch actually does come in 3 different sizes. And because we're an Australian invention where we've got marsupials which are pouch animals, and we do like to have a little bit of fun with the brand and no one wants to be a small, medium or large, we name them after Australian marsupials. So we've got the quokka, the koala and the wombat pouch.
That's
awesome.
Great. I love that.
So I want to ask, how did this come about and this process where you decided to become a founder? I mean, were you sort of trying ice packs early on and didn't get good feedback on that? And where did this revelation that if we can just sort of separate things without pulling them off, this could work?
Well, we knew the key to optimal sperm health and cellular function was that we had to consistently keep the testes cool, not just ice the testes for 10 minutes and think, be done with it and keep them hot the rest of the time. It's really important to allow that, to reduce the compounding heat that all men go throughout the day. And so we knew we had to develop a device or some type of garment that Jordan could wear day and night. So he actually wore this to bed as well. We get a lot of our customers actually do wear cool beans to bed as well. And I'll go into that a bit later, but we're getting amazing feedback from men who actually do choose to sleep in their cool beans as well. So we, after many different types of moderations of trying to create something that Jordan could wear, we finally found something that was wearable. Definitely nowhere near as comfortable as what we have now produced, but we never intended to commercialize this. We just developed it for Jordan and I to have our own baby.
Yeah, you were solving a specific problem.
Exactly. We were solving a problem for us so we could start our family. And it wasn't till after I'd had my son that my OBGYN kept calling me and saying, Saara, I've got patients that need your product. When are you going to do something about this? And then our friends and family, their friends and family were reaching out to us and asking, can you create something for us? We're trying to conceive and we're miscarrying. We've been trying for so many years, or we've been through so many rounds of IVF. We don't know what else to do. Can you please do something for us? And it was once we started hearing these messages from all of these people around us, we really started to do a bit more of a deep dive into, can we make this into a business? And so while we developed this for sperm health, we have gone far beyond expectations. So we're working now with elite athletes to enhance their physical and mental performance by naturally enhancing their testosterone, but also helping to preserve their fertility and health beyond their sporting careers. We've got middle to later age men who haven't been able to be sexually active, who are now back in the bedroom with their partners. We've got men who have been suffering with testicular pain their entire lives, who are now pain-free because you've actually got that adequate scrotal support. But not only that, because of how everything is configured, it also makes it a perfect garment for post-operative care. So you're working with urologists and oncologists for testicular prostate cancer, for vasectomies, even physios for groin muscle strains and pelvic floor instability. All of these things because there's adequate support, because the actual bulk of the underwear, it is a slightly more snugger fit around the body, so it holds everything nicely in place. And then you obviously have the scrotal support as well and keeping the penis separate from the scrotum. So while we developed this for sperm health to help my husband and I have a baby, it has gone so much further than I ever thought possible.
Isn't it amazing?
That's amazing. And what a great calling, I suppose, as well, when you talk about mission-led and seeing the impact that has on the world. I think that's such a fantastic thing. I'm really interested to dive in a little bit on the product development journey. Developing physical things is always a very challenging part of building a startup. It's very different to obviously your regular software startups. I'm interested to hear a little bit about any bumps along the way. I mean, finding suppliers, prototyping. Tell us a little bit about that.
You name it, I've probably gone through it. It has been a bumpy journey to get to this point. So when we finally decided to go on this venture, I had a 1-year-old baby. I was then also pregnant with my daughter. And I thought, I don't want to give up all that time with my children. And so I actually recruited a all-service company to help with the pattern making, the prototyping. So we supply prototypes. and they were supposed to help with the prototyping, pattern making, and then the manufacturing as well as marketing. So it's like a whole service organization. And my recommendation to anyone that's looking at a full service organization to work with is if they do everything, they don't do anything well. And
yeah, that's absolutely a thing.
It costs me so much money and time, which is so my 7-year journey of getting to this point now. 2 years was spent with that organization in the early days because I was trying to separate, mum life and not missing out on those early days with my children, and then sort of trusting that this organization say that they can deliver, but ultimately never could. And then I also was working with my IP lawyer in the early days. I'd already put in my provisional patent. So Cool Beans has over 20 plus global secured patents now.
Wow.
And I'd already put in my provisional patent in the early days, and I'm working with this IP lawyer. And so you've got to get your official patent then application in before the 12 months of your provisional patent. And he's like, yeah, we're doing it. I'm like, I'm not seeing anything. Can you send me some drafts? Oh, no, we're doing it. And ended up he was just stringing me along. There was nothing happening there. And I had to dump him on the whirlwind. And my business lawyer recommended this IP firm, Michael Buck IP here in Brisbane, who I think they're now got a few locations down the eastern seaboard. And I started working with them. We got this patent fully secured, done within about 6 weeks. And they have been absolutely incredible to work with as a startup founder, trying to navigate this whole IP sector. I definitely recommend spending the time trying to find a IP firm that gets what you're trying to do and is going to be there and support you, especially as a first-time founder, because trying to navigate this IP minefield is just crazy. So big shout out to Michael Buck IP. They've been absolutely tremendous, and I highly, highly recommend them.
All right, you should get your next IP for free based on that little promo. Sarah, I want to ask not just about being a first-time founder, but a solo founder, because that's a journey that is tough. Tell us about your experience, because you kind of realise you're in this startup space. I suspect you've got quite good at it over certainly the last couple of years, but that initial step and going, as you said, from mum with young children and trying to figure out a way to find that balance so that you still focus on your other priority, your children. What's that been like, and what are the lessons you've learned?
So challenging. I definitely wish I was starting Cool Beans today than me 7 years ago. It has been so challenging. It is a lonely, lonely journey. And when I first started, I didn't know there were things called accelerator programs or pre-accelerators. I didn't understand any of these things. Or that, I didn't know that there was like Advanced Queensland or Brisbane Business Hub. I didn't realize there were all of these networks out there that you can tap into. But those early couple of years, because I was so focused on trying to be with my family, I was just, head down, bum up, and then being a mum. And it wasn't until I started to really look for support services that I'm like, oh, look at this. There's this accelerator program. They're going to help walk me through this whole process. It was absolutely amazing once I discovered this. And working through different accelerator programs, you also then build connections with other founders and other particularly female founders. And you can actually start building your network out. And then you have organisations that are like Advanced Queensland through the Queensland government or Brisbane Business Hub, where they're constantly putting on events to help educate you, to give you the resources you need to help see you succeed. And once I actually realised that there were all of these resources, my life absolutely transformed. I wasn't stuck on being so reliant on just a few individual people in my network. I could actually start going and talking to experts, get some mentors, get some advisors, and go, this is what my accountant is saying. Does that sound reasonable to you? And if I would have had that, I may not have my accountancy issue that I'm been trying to backpedal through now for the last 2 years. So it is constantly a learning curve, but having someone that you can at least bounce ideas off if something doesn't sound right, instead of being solely reliant on one expert in your field, like one accountant, it's been absolutely game changer for me, not only in the success and how the business is tracking, but just mentally. And a lot of these organizations have become, like I feel like I'm part of their family now. So I always think I'm part of the Advanced Queensland family, and BETA, Brisbane Economic Development Agency, I feel like I'm part of their family. It's no longer this transactional relationship of what do you want from me or what do I want from you. It is a real proper networking community where everyone relies on everyone and wants to see you succeed. And once you can find your people, it makes being a solo founder so much better.
Now, while we're on accelerators, one of the things you did earlier this year was the NRL Magic Round Tech Sprint. And as I joked at the time, you ended up speaking to something like 100 NRL execs and club heads with a different take on ball movement and control. So what's it like talking to blokes about something that they probably don't want to hear about from a woman?
Yes, I've gotten very used to it now. I see a lot of uncomfortable faces. There's always a lot of squirming. There's a lot of people trying to avoid eye contact. But honestly, you just got to own it. Be comfortable, confident in what you're talking about. And the fact that there are so many people that are awkward about talking about testicular health, fertility, when it shouldn't be. These are biological aspects of our bodies and how we're trying to reproduce and the health of our offspring, and trying to enhance the health of for the NRL, their players. This is something that needs to be considered. And until we can get past that this is an awkward situation, an awkward conversation, how are we actually going to really start trying to enhance men's health?
I love that. Taking the opportunity rather than the problem. I want to talk about first mover advantage because a lot of people often say it's an advantage. A lot of other founders will say it's a disadvantage. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, having been, first to market with this product.
I would say it's definitely both. In some aspects, it is always going to cost you a hell of a lot more being first to market, because nobody knows about your product. They don't know to search for it. And especially for us, we're solving an issue that not many people know about either. And so being first mover, yes, it has its advantages. You get that brand loyalty. You also get the first people like, oh, this is new and shiny. What is this? And they're going to then spread the word. But it is very, very costly to be a first mover into a new industry. And for someone, so I haven't raised capital yet, other than Family Fools. And but I am looking to do a cap raise next year. So how can I get the best impact and get the message out there when I don't have a budget for it? So as I said, was won all of the awards, competitions, things like that, which is fantastic. Trying to get that PR. I was on the Today Show, I've been in the Courier Mail, all of these things. They're definitely beneficial. But I've actually now written a book, which is now coming out in about another week or so.
Woohoo.
Stay tuned onto the Cool Beans Underwear website. But essentially, I've written a book now of talking about not only our fertility journey, how Cool Beans came to be, but educating people about what's happening in the men's health space and its impact on future generations. And so that is my way without having to raise funds, and why we've been trying to work as hard as we can, bootstrapping this to get as much traction as possible before we do our cap raise, have all these clinical applications to try and get as big an impact as we can. But it is definitely about education. Education is key. And so the more you can spread the conversation around men's health, the impact it's having not only on you today, but the way how you age, your ability to be sexually active for longer, how long are you going to be mentally alert as you're aging, your physical ability, all of these things need to be considered. And something as simple as changing your underwear to allow you to optimally enhance your testosterone is going to have a benefit no matter where you are on your health cycle.
Saara, let's imagine your kids have grown up to be adults. What do you want them to say, and what do you think they'll say about their mum as an entrepreneur?
Oh, she's a ball getter. I strive for my kids to see me always pushing forward. There have been so many ups and downs, especially financially, time constraints, but I've always kept my children. I don't shadow my kids from any of this at all. My kids see me being the raw human that I am, struggling with business decisions, finances, and I bring them into the conversation. So my kids now are 6 and 8, but they are aware, they have a lot more clarity on the understanding of monetary value, time, and why mum is doing this. And I definitely never treat them as, maybe I should, but treat them as the young kids that they are. They are very much exposed to the ups and downs that we go through as a startup household on what is required for mum to get this business up and going, which is to enhance not only their health financially as well, but essentially we want to help enhance global health. So every time we can enhance a man pre-conception, enhancing his sperm health, he's going to have a healthier child. And then hopefully we can have more and more healthier children being born, which is going to help enhance global health. Because if I want my children to be able to conceive naturally, excuse me, if I want my children to be able to conceive naturally, no one else is going to do anything. No one else is doing anything in this space that isn't related to reproductive services. That's going to actually help them have healthiher children and reverse the critical impact of what's happening in the men's health space today.
I'm just going to say, because I have been sitting here sort of slightly manspreading as we've chatted in this conversation, and I've realised I shouldn't have my laptop on my lap either, because that's not good for you.
We need to get you like a
it is
standing desk.
Absolutely terrible for you.
Yeah. So a few lifestyle changes coming up.
At least these things are adjustable, so we can get you standing. We've spoken a little bit about all the different applications you've had so far with your one product and bringing it all out to market. I'm interested to know what's next for you guys. Where are you planning to take Cool Bean underwear? And, of course, talking about global health problems. Interested in the trajectory.
We have a massive pipeline of what I want to do. So we will be bringing out our athletic version, our recovery tights, and our sleep short. So they're the 3 immediate products in our pipeline, but we need funding. So now that we have built, I feel like, a really solid base of Cool Beans, that we're now at that point where we're ready to raise capital and make that impact. So we're also, I don't believe we mentioned that, but we're also a registered medical device with the TGA now. So we're doing clinical trials with the University of Queensland. So essentially we've been able to prove without a benefit of a doubt to the TGA that we're going to have an impact. But how big that impact is the bit that we still don't know. So University of Queensland will be doing our clinical trials. Once we have that clinical data, we can actually then go to the FDA and get FDA certification. And we're also now getting interest from the US Defense into how can we enhance testosterone for their military personnel, because the higher their testosterone is, the lower their PTSD will be as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
these are all the things that are linked by testosterone. So we can enhance your testosterone naturally. Not only will you feel better, but you'll also have better mental health. Also cardiovascular health, diabetes, even lipomas, they're all elevated when your testosterone decreases.
Wow.
Wow. Didn't realize.
Just finally, what would your advice be to other founders, especially when you're building? I want to call this deep tech. I do think it is a deep tech product, and a medic. Yeah, absolutely. But what would your advice be in building to other founders who want to take on quite a challenge and build a physical product?
Go to networking events, because you never know who you're going to meet. And then once you have an idea of what you want to create, the more you can talk about it without giving your IP away, the easier it'll become for you to communicate this in a way that actually resonates with people. And maybe everything you keep saying is just never hitting the mark. So then you can pivot early on. But talking to strangers at networking events, they're absolutely been key and has allowed me to, how do I communicate a product like Cool Beans to the general population without making them squirm and turn away and just think this is a highly clinical product that I just want to switch off to. And I feel like that has all come by me going to networking events and just constantly talking about my product and learning what resonates. Oh, don't use that word, but use this word, and different things like that. And then also then pivoting your message. How do you actually talk about your product? Is it and then what is the direct market? So I've spoken to a lot of founders who have created this product for this specific market, but they're so channeled into that this is the problem that they're solving. And when I speak to them, I'm like, well, have you thought about this market, or this market? And they're like, oh, no, not at all. And so the awareness you can get and the education from just the people you're talking to can really open up your mind to new possibilities and avenues that you could take your business down.
Thank you so much. I do want to finally, I'm just going to slip one more. What is the craziest conversation you've had? There must have been a moment where you're going, why am I here doing this, from the reactions you've got from people?
I was at a trade show. So I was at a trade show and showing some guy, I think it was Australian Healthcare Week. This guy came up from the general population, just came up and was like, oh, what are you doing here? And I showed him the product. He goes, why would I spend that when I can get a 3-pack of these undies, undid his pants, pulled his undies up the front for a 3-pack of these for $15. And I'm like, that's probably the craziest thing that I've had happen to me, is someone actually physically undo their pants and pull their undies up and show me their jocks that they're wearing. And that's part of the mentality about the education that we need to overcome, is how does our product compare to normal underwear? But
Poor chap sounds like someone who probably shouldn't be breeding. So, maybe it's the best outcome for all concerned.
But the most
Survival of the
meaningful thing that's ever happened to me was I was again at a trade show. This lady came and saw me and goes, well, my husband has chronic skin conditions in the groin. He's actually had to start working from home, stop exercising. It's completely debilitating. We are buying different brands, different materials of underwear every month, trying something that can help him. I said, well, this is how the product works. I think it would probably have a benefit to him. So she bought some product. I was then exhibiting at a trade show 6 months later, and she saw that my name was on the list, and she came to that trade show specifically to see me. And my husband was there as well. He goes, oh no, I want to speak to her. Thank you. And so I finished up talking to her, who I was speaking to. And I turned to her and I'm like, oh, hi, how are you going? And she just like, can I give you a hug? And she came up and just gave me the biggest hug and started crying and to just thank me. Her husband's skin conditions had completely alleviated. He was back working, back exercising, and they were back living a normal life again.
wow.
And that was probably the most touching, most meaningful encounter I've had as well.
That's one of those moments that absolutely makes it all worth it.
Absolutely.
I have to tell you, I am excited about the sleepwear because they do get tangled up at night and, you can cause yourself a mischief. So if you can keep everything safe, secure and cool, I'll be delighted to be wearing my Cool Beans underwear overnight.
With regards to sleep, which is what I did touch on earlier, is that we have a lot of men now waking up feeling so much more refreshed and energized for their day if they sleep in their Cool Beans. Because no matter for a man, if you're sleeping on your back, your side, your stomach, the testes are going to get insulated and overheated. And so a lot of men don't realize is that once they actually get too hot, signals go to the brain, you wake up subconsciously, you need to pull them out, readjust so they can cool down, disrupting your REM cycle and actually giving you, waking you up so you're not getting that full sound sleep. And so men are now wearing their Cool Beans to bed and waking up like they've had a proper night's sleep for the first time. So
Well, see, and that's brilliant. And then your wife won't wonder why you're touching them in the middle of the night either. So that's a win for everyone.
it is, it most definitely is.
Saara Jamieson, thank you so much for joining us on Startup 360. Congratulations again on being a finalist in the Best in Tech Awards for 2025.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here today, guys.
Well, how was that for a lesson in things?
It's good to know. I didn't know half of all those things. So that's really, really great, I think.
But the testosterone one is absolutely fascinating. Fertility is one particular issue, but there's been a big debate, discussion around what's going on when it comes to testosterone. And it seems like Saara has really got something going that's big on that front.
It's fantastic.
And non-medical. Well, a medical device, but non-intervention when it comes to having to take a pill or some sort of serious intervention.
I think it's so great. I'm so excited to see the impact this will have and the ability to, as we say, impact the world, impact individual lives and make the world a better place. So I think that's really great.
Okay, important question for the weekend, Brisbane or Melbourne?
I'm going to have to say Brisbane or my partner would probably murder me. So
Okay, and hopefully they get a pair of Cool Beans underwear if they win the grand final. I reckon that would be a good idea. But that is it for this week. We hope you enjoyed that conversation and learned a little bit about male reproductive health, as well as just being cool. This show is a Smart Co media production, produced and edited by the wonderful Matt Jackson, who has just become a dad, so huge congrats to him. Thanks to Ella Walsh, James Vass and Vanta for their support. Subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to startupdaily.net. It's free. We'll send you an email every day telling you all the latest news, including my next story on Cool Beans underwear, maybe the book, maybe the fundraise, and it'll have plenty of nut jokes in there. So don't miss that either. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.